Randomized Gaming presents.
Hello and welcome to another randomized gaming video. I am your host once again for this video, Random Gamer Riven. So in this video we've actually decided we want to take a look at VGA scalars for consoles, and we're actually going to be looking at what scaler we use for the Sega Dreamcast. One of the reasons for this video is actually because we've had quite a few people now ask us about what scaler we use for the VGA on the Dreamcast. And the other point is, when I actually looked, there wasn't a huge selection of good quality videos. The other thing is that we've now been using the scaler we've had for nearly a year now, and in October we did a Dreamcast month special where we covered a huge range of Dreamcast games, and all those videos were captured using this one scaler. Having been using our VGA scaler for a few months now, I think it's finally time that we feel confident enough to be able to recommend it. However, before I discuss the scaler in question, I'm actually going to say that the first question should be, do you actually need a scaler and what do they do? Well, the main function of any scaler, and in this case talking about a VGA one, is to upscale a lower standard definition resolution from, say, 480i, 480p, or perhaps a lower resolution such as 240p, and scale it up to a new modern HD resolution such as 720p or 1080p. The other function of most scalars, and for many retro games is probably the most important factor, is that you're actually converting a original standard definition input to something like composite, S-video, RGB, component, VGA, and there's a few others, over to a newer format such as HDMI. And the main reason behind this is because that most modern TVs now only carry HDMI inputs, so you won't be able to plug your old consoles directly into them without some sort of device to convert the older signal. Right, so that's the short version of exactly what a scaler does. And my next question is, do you have, let's say, an LCD TV that supports a format like VGA already, and are you playing, let's say, your Dreamcast already on that TV, and are you perfectly happy with that picture? Well, if the answer is yes to that question, then you don't need a scaler and you might as well finish watching the video here. If, however, like us, you actually want to play your Dreamcast on your brand spanking new 4K TV, or you want to actually capture your Sega Dreamcast via a capture card that only supports HDMI, then you are going to need one. And that's actually the primary reason we actually got scalars, because we wanted to capture formats like Dreamcast over VGA, which is the best possible quality, and we wanted to do so over high quality capture cards, but most capture cards these days only support HDMI, which is a problem when you're trying to capture VGA or RGB SCART. Now, there's actually a huge range of scalars available, and to the uninitiated it can be quite a daunting task because there is such a huge variety of them, and even more so because there's so many different inputs that you can scale up from composite, S-video, RGB. Knowing which scaler is right for you is actually quite a time-consuming process. However, if you take a look around the net, two of them that you'll see quite heavily championed are the Framemeister XRGB Mini and the OSSC. Now, the OSSC is an open source scaler, although the problem with it is that because it's open source, you're basically meant to build one yourself. And so if you can't build one yourself, then you're going to need to find someone who manufactures one. But overall, it seems to be a fairly decent scaler, provided you have the right sort of setup and know how to actually build one. Now, the big premium one that a lot of people are talking about is, of course, the Framemeister XRGB Mini, and that gets an awful lot of talk on various YouTube channels. However, Randomized Gaming's big gripe with the Framemeister is, while the unit is designed to support 240p and 480i perfectly, the unit itself is not so hot on 480p. Perhaps the giveaway for this is the fact that the Framemeister doesn't directly support VGA, which would suggest MyCom know that there was an issue and actually didn't intend for the Framemeister to be used to actually video and broadcast 480p signals. However, you will see many YouTubers still saying, yes, this is a brilliant device to use for the Dreamcast. And while that's true to say for 480i signals, so if you're playing via RGB SCART or S-video, if you want to play via VGA, well, then it's probably not the best device for you. Consistently, when we've checked Framemeister videos, the aspect ratio can be a little bit tweaky, and the method we've seen a lot of people use is they're actually using a DC VGA box that has an RGB input, so you're then losing some of the progressive scan quality image because, of course, RGB is just primarily designed to display interlaced footage, not progressive, although I believe SCART can carry progressive input. But the caveat is you're losing quality because you're not passing VGA over the correct VGA leads. So in almost every video I've seen, the aspect ratio of the Dreamcast, certainly on YouTube, is often being displayed incorrectly when people are using the Framemeister. Indeed, my research this past few days comparing to, say, our own Sonic Adventure video, I saw a couple of Sonic Adventure videos where they had used VGA boxes and things like the spirals weren't correctly spirals, pixels weren't smooth, some were slightly out of shape, there was some distorting as well. So really the Framemeister for VGA is not the way to go, contrary to what a lot of other YouTubers are saying. And the other point I should make out is that a lot of YouTubers are sort of casually dismissing the issues of the Framemeister. Yes, if you're going to play Super Nintendo, Mega Drive or like Neo Geo games with a console that uses a fixed resolution and low resolutions like 240p, the Framemeister is certainly one of the premium scalers on the market. For devices like the Dreamcast, however, it's perhaps not as good as a lot of people are making out, so you need to consider exactly what consoles you're going to be using on what scalers. As if you plan to only use a scaler with, say, the Dreamcast, then the Framemeister probably isn't the best value for money for you, as at the minute it costs £250 currently. On top of that, you need a whole assortment of additional cables to support the device, which aren't usually mentioned in some of the videos I've seen, but it's not a cheap outlay. So you'll probably find if you want to, say, play the Dreamcast and Dreamcast only on a scaler, you actually just want to go solely for a VGA scaler. And these can be had for a lot cheaper, ranging from £20 up to around about £150. And just before I discuss the scaler itself that we're using, I'd like to say if you do see videos of people recommending scalers, do check out the YouTuber and check out if they tell you how much they paid for it, where they got it from, and where they donated it, because a lot of YouTubers I think are being donated stuff by companies. Check the websites they're appearing on. If you're seeing them on like big trader websites, you know, they may have had additional investment, because these videos aren't exactly cheap to make. So if they're high quality slick production, that's had some real money put into it, and you do have to ask where that money's come from. And there have been a few cases where I've looked at videos and thought, you're not being very open about the flaws of the Framemeister. And this is another thought with all scalers. People should be telling you how much they paid for the device, where they got it from, and they should cover the pros and the cons. And trust me, in this video we will be covering the pros and the cons of the scaler we're going to be talking about. So originally, when we actually started doing Dreamcast randomized gaming videos, we actually used a different scaler, and this is for some of our early sort of 2015 videos, and you will see that during some of them there was sort of artifacting in, certainly in the Skies of Arcadia video. If you look at the background, you will occasionally see a bit of artifacting in some of the sort of smooth areas. Certainly like in the intro when you see Fina, there was some artifacting, and this was a result of our original scaler. I mean, it gave a good quality picture, but there was some slight artifacting. It wasn't perfect, but we were happy with enough as it is. So basically the reason we actually got a second VGA scaler was actually a slight quirk of luck, because basically we were actually looking for a component scaler, and we picked up a scaler from a UK seller on Amazon that was actually component and VGA. We thought, oh, it's got VGA, but we probably won't be using that feature. But we thought, when we got it, we thought, well, we'll test the VGA. And when we actually ran tests on the VGA, we realised the VGA output from the second scaler was actually better, as there was no artifacting. So immediately we then realised we ditched the old scaler and just started using this new scaler. Now this scaler does use both component and VGA. But before I go into the review any further, what I will say is that if you look in the background, all the videos we've been running as I've been talking, they have all been recorded via the newer scaler. So I picked up the scaler from Amazon, and it was by a company called Neet. Now I think it still is a rebranded version of one of those sort of slightly middle of the road scalers. Neet obviously are a UK seller, so they don't sell in the US, but I found what appeared to be the same scaler being sold under different manufacturers in the US on Amazon.com. But basically Neet, that's spelt N-E-E-T, and this is a component VGA scaler, and the VGA actually works really nicely. Let's start with the good points before I get on with the bad. First off, it looks great. As you can see, there's no quality loss from the DC VGA box. Now, one thing I should point out with is you do need to check your VGA box before you ever get any scaler, because if your VGA box gives a poor quality picture, the scaler will just simply upscale that poor quality picture. And like Scalars, making sure you have the right DC VGA box is really important. Now, this Neet scaler is fairly easy to set up. You plug in the mains, you plug your audio and you plug in your video cable into the scaler from the DC VGA box. And that's one key point. If you are doing Scalars, make sure it has a video and audio output. Some Scalars are video only. If that's the case, you will not be recording audio with your game. So do make sure that the scaler you buy has both an audio and a video output and input. So the scaler itself doesn't require any additional cables. It's just literally plug in the power supply, plug in the DC VG box cables, and then you just plug in the HDMI output and plug it into your TV or your scaler. And hopefully away you go. And although it doesn't feature a huge range of options, unlike the really, really cheap scalers, it does have a few options that enable you to tweak sound and volume, adjust the audio, adjust the video and the colour. It also enables you to change aspect ratio from 16:9 to 4:3, which is really handy when we're recording videos. And supposedly it supports 16:10 according to the instructions, but upon testing the actual unit, I can't seem to select the setting 16:10. So either it's automatic or the instructions are telling fibs. One of the two. So I'm going to say at the minute, as far as I'm aware, it doesn't appear to. It claims to support 16:10 aspect ratio. I can't seem to see it supporting 16:10. Although according to the instructions, it appears to say it'll only do 16:10 if it's actually on a monitor that does 16:10 automatically. But as I don't have a 16:10 monitor, I can't confirm that. And just to confirm some of the resolutions it supports 640, 480, 800 by 600 in VGA. It supports 1224 by 768, and it supports 16x900, 1920, 1080. And for the component support, or YPBPR, it supports 480i at 60, 480p at 60, 576i at 50, 576p at 50, 720p at 50-60Hz, 1080i at 50-60Hz, 1080p at 50-60Hz. So as you can tell, it's fairly versatile. For capturing purposes, it's actually proven to be really, really good. However, there are some flaws, and I will now go over those flaws, and indeed some of them, these flaws may well put you off. First off, it doesn't support resolution-wise 240p. Now, something like the Dreamcast doesn't use 240p, it only uses 480p when it outputs VGA resolution, but anyone who's used a Wii and the Virtual Console will know you can force that into 240p over component if you want to do certain games. Unfortunately, I tried that, and as soon as I did that, the scaler wouldn't have any of those games running at 240p. They were fine at the default resolution, but not when you use the 240p mode on the Wii, so it does not support 240p. Now, I should also say that, as you expect, it doesn't have a huge array of options. Admittedly, that's fair for the price, but there's not a huge amount of options. If you don't like it from the get-go, you're probably not going to be able to adjust the settings too much, but there are a few settings, but not as many as I would have liked. As I said, you can adjust the aspect ratio, for me, which is one of the most important things. So this is actually the big problem that we had, and this is the big con, and I suspect this may put some people off the device as well, once I've said it, is that it works perfectly on our TVs, and we haven't had any issues with any of our TVs. It worked on one of our capture cards. It did not work on one of our other capture cards. Now, I'm not sure whether this is a HDCP issue or because the capture card didn't like it, or whether it's some form of how it's encoding it. But basically, my central main capture card, which is the Elgato HD60 Pro, did not like it whatsoever for some reason. Other capture cards would like it. Now, whether it's HDCP, I'm not 100% sure. What I do know is you would get the video and not the audio, which is a classic case of HDCP being activated, but not always the case. There was also sometimes some weird background noises. Fortunately, I did manage to find a workaround to get it working. And interestingly, when I did a workaround that tried to strip off the HDCP, that still caused the scaler not to work. So it's suggesting that it might not be a HDCP issue and something else, but bear that in mind. I did have to find a workaround. It worked on one of my capture card straight off the bat without any issues, nothing extra needed, but for my main capture card, the Elgato HD60 Pro, it did require a workaround, which isn't ideal. And some people, if you're not prepared to sort of investigate workarounds, you may have a problem. Ironically, I did see someone say he had the same issue, and his workaround was to use a Framemeister. There's a slight irony there in the fact that you're using the Framemeister as a through box, but that's obviously what they were doing. But yeah, that was a weird one, using a Framemeister to fix a problem that you may have a connectivity issue, so do bear that in mind. I did see some other people in various reviews saying they had issues when it was in a big chain of setups. It much preferred being connected from the host console to the TV they had. If you had other devices in between, there might be issues as well, so do keep that in mind. Again, I'm not sure whether it's a HDCP issue or something else untoward, but basically bear that in mind. We've got it up and running perfectly now, but we did have to fiddle around with it, and by default it wasn't working on, as I said, the Elgato HD60 Pro. So that is something to bear in mind. If you find that you have that capture card and you can't get it to work straight off the bat. However, if you're just using it to play on TVs, if you're not using it to capture, all my TVs have played it perfectly without any issue. So it seems to be more a capture issue, which suggests it might be something to do with HDCP. Although I've not said too much on the component side of it, this scaler does do it, and we have done it for a few videos, notably the Tekken 4 one, our Reckless one, and a couple of others. The GameCube videos we did later on, I think the two Star Fox ones, they are both using the component side of it. The one downside of the component is a lot of the consoles, certainly the PAL consoles we're using, had progressive scan annoyingly removed. I think only the Tekken 4 video we had progressive scan enabled, because that's one of the few PAL games that did support progressive scan. But component, you are slightly reliant on the console itself because of the output, so component output can vary per console to console. But if you like what you see in this video, by all means look at our Dreamcast month videos that we did all of October last year. And basically, if you like the videos we did back then, all of those videos were using this VGA scaler. So if you like that quality, you'll probably know if this is a scaler for you or not, but do bear in mind what I've said about the problems we've had with it, and do think about whether you're willing to take a bit of a punt. If, like us, you're a buyer who's UK based and you're buying from Amazon UK, then you will actually be protected under the sales of good acts and the cooling off period, so keep that in mind if you do want to purchase it. One other thing that I should point out is you'll notice that a few of the videos that we've done have a slightly soft focus to us, and this has been really annoying us at Randomised Gaming, in the fact that the Elgato capture card HD software doesn't have a sharpness adjust, and it always has a slightly soft focus. In fact, any Elgato video across the net, I can instantly tell when it's been captured via an Elgato software, because the sharpness is always a bit softened, and that's an issue Elgato need to address. I'm not really going to say any more. You'll know if this is the right scaler for you. I mean, we've been very happy with the end result. You'll know that from all our Dreamcast videos. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please do leave a comment below, or you can always direct message us or contact us on Twitter or the blog as well. We are available in all those various formats. Please don't ask us how we solved the Elgato HD60 Pro capture issue, as I won't be disclosing that publicly, but there are capture cards that do work with this. Well, I will say that if you liked the video, please do hit that like button. Even if you just watched it, please do hit that like button. The reason is it actually affects the rankings of this video, and the more likes we get, the higher we get bumped up on to like the first page or something, so we get more views, hits, etc. Always very helpful. And always please do subscribe to our channel as well. The more subscribers, the more chance we'll be able to do of doing additional videos like this in the future. So I'm sure a few of you would like us to do an unbiased Framemeister review, and we'd really love to give it a whirl as well, but currently we don't have one. And we are actually waiting for if Mycom do an XRGB 4, because the Framemeister's coming to the end of its production run, and there's been suggestions they're working on a 4K scaler, seeing as how 4K is becoming the sort of TV standard. So hopefully we might pick up one of them when that comes out, but that's probably not due out for a year or two. I mean, I'd love it if we could pick up one at a very cheap and reasonable price, but at the minute, the known issues that I've seen and sort of analysed before have said it's probably not worth the outlay. I mean, it'd be great for SNES and Mega Drive videos, but as we've discovered, SNES and Mega Drive videos don't do that well on YouTube because there's so many. Framemeister's not so hot on 32-bit games because of their resolution changes, so there are quite a few 32-bit games you can't even use with the Framemeister because it just keeps dropping out signal, so you can't capture. But it's something to keep in mind for the future. Although we might look at picking up an OSSC at some point, because that does seem far more reasonable at this point in time. Okay, that was where this video originally ended. However, we decided we were actually going to run the 240p test suite over it. Granted, it's running in the 480 version on Dreamcast, but we thought we'd give it a whirl to see how the scaler handles all the various tests in the test suite. So over the next 5 minutes, we're going to run all the various tests. In input fairness, for the input lag test, I ran 3 versions of the input lag test, and you'll see I pretty much managed to get it to under a frame of lag. So there's very little lag with this scaler, but you'd expect that with progressive. There may even be 0, but unfortunately, because you have to manually test with your button inputs, there's the whole hand-eye coordination reflexes, and I must admit I'm getting a bit long in the tooth, so my reflexes aren't as fast as they used to be. But this will give you a good eye of all the tests, and as you'll see, there isn't really any problems. All the drop shadows are working correctly, as are all the stripe lines, but you would expect that for a progressive input, as usually progressive input's much easier to do than an interlaced one, so you would expect a lot less problems with a good scaler. You can of course probably get bad VGA scalers that may add in streaking, but as you can see here, there just doesn't appear to be any additional problems. It's all works very nicely. So I'll leave the 240p results just to play out above. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and this is me, Random Gamer Riven, saying goodbye for now.